This podcast may contain explicit language. Oh, I like your outfit too, except when I dress up as a frigid bitch, I try not to look so constipated. Legally Blonde is next. Welcome to the Greatest Movie of All Time podcast, the show that uses a unique grading style to redefine what the greatest movies are. I'm Tom Duncan.
And I'm Dana Duncan.
Tonight, for our 320th episode, we discuss Legally Blonde from 2001, celebrating its 25th anniversary. Directed by Robert Lukatich, written by Karen McCullough Lutz and Kirsten Smith, cinematography by Anthony B. Richmond, music by Rolf Kent, editing by Anita Brandt Burgoyne, starring Reese Witherspoon as Elle Woods, Luke Wilson as Emmett Richmond, Selma Blair as Vivian Kensington, Matthew Davis as Warner Huntington III, Victor Garber as Professor Aaron Callahan, Jennifer Coolidge as Paulette Bonafante, Holland Taylor as Professor Elspeth, that's quite a name, Stromwell. I mean, does everybody have these weird names that you'd find in leather-bound books on mahogany shelves? My goodness. Allie Larder as Brooke Taylor Wyndham, Jessica Caulfield as Margot Chapman, Alana Ubek as Serena McGuire, Oz Perkins as David Kidney, Linda Cardellini as Chutney Wyndham, Bruce Thomas as the UPS guy, Meredith Scott Lynn as Enid Wexler, and Raquel Welch as Mrs. Wyndham Vandermark. Background for the movie: Legally Blonde was released on July 13th, 2001. On a budget of roughly $18 million, the film went on to gross just short of $142 million worldwide, finishing at number 32 for the worldwide box office for 2001. Critics were generally positive, mostly due to the lead performance by Witherspoon, who was described as elevating otherwise predictable material. More than 20 years later, the film continues to inspire generations of filmgoers, many of them women who went on to become prospective law students. Quote, "At least once a week, I have a woman come up to me and say, 'I went to law school because of Legally Blonde,'" Witherspoon said. "It's incredible. You can be unapologetically feminine, but also smart and driven." The success of the film spawned a sequel, Legally Blonde 2, Red, White, and Blonde, a musical, one straight-to-home video release starring British twins Camilla and Rebecca Rosso called Legally Blondes, and an upcoming 2026 prequel series announced by Amazon Prime Video called Elle. In 2021, Writers Guild of America West and Writers Guild of America East, which makes sense, included the film's screenplay in the Writers Guild of America's 101 Greatest Screenplays of the 21st Century so far. In 2025, it was one of the films voted for the Reader's Choice edition of the New York Times' best list of the 100 best movies of the 21st century, finishing at number 179. Legally Blonde currently holds a 75% among critics on Rotten Tomatoes, a 59 Metacritic score, and a 3.8 out of 5 on Letterboxd. But we can't do this by ourselves, so we bring in two very special returning guests for this episode. First up, we have a returning celebrity guest making her 12th appearance on the show to date. My little sister who wanted to go to Harvard Law after seeing this movie. It's the pint-sized professor of past antiquities only she cares about. Please welcome back Sarah Duncan.
Thanks, good to be back.
Are you sure?
And I'm not the only one who cares about them, otherwise it wouldn't be an entire field.
Okay. Sure. We also welcome our other returning celebrity guest, making her 7th appearance on the show to date. My other sister, who has incessantly watched this movie as a child and made me watch it with her, the spoonful of sugar herself. Please welcome back Allyson Techmeier.
Thanks for having me.
Are you sure?
I don't know. I'll decide at the end of this whether it was good to be back.
So I specifically chose and, let's say, reserved this movie for both of you because both of you made me repeatedly watch this movie. Not that I really had a problem with it by any measure, including the sequel. I think I've seen each of those at least 20 to 30 times. Many vacations, putting it on the DVD player in the car, watching this over and over and over again. But, ladies, what is your relationship to this film?
Well, I got it as an Easter present when it came out on DVD, and because Mom thought I would enjoy it. And then I fell in love with it and obviously watched it a lot. My relationship with it as a kid, it was just because it was good and funny, and I just loved Reese Witherspoon. But now as an adult, that's a little bit more... I like the message a little bit more than I appreciated as a kid, obviously. But it's still a great movie that I come back to, make my husband watch every once in a while.
I'm sure he enjoys that, knowing my brother-in-law.
I don't care. He makes me watch his movies, too.
That's true. Sarah, what was your relationship to the film?
I watched it a lot growing up just because it was always a fun film. But I would say my relationship really changed with this when I got to graduate school. And I feel like I was kind of in a similar circumstance to her, where I was surrounded by men in my graduate program who were constantly talking down to me, because I somehow in their heads didn't understand what I was talking about. And it's definitely a film that really kind of helped me understand that there's nothing that I can do to change that opinion except put in the time and the work to actually do what I came to do anyway. So, and it kind of pushed me through of this idea of don't let someone ever tell you that, don't let a man ruin your life. One of the top things I find this movie talks about. And sometimes you're just never going to be good enough for somebody else, and that has nothing to do with you.
I mean, we haven't gotten to the what is the movie about section, but I can't argue with either of those things. Especially as your older brother, not letting a man ruin your life, I think I'm okay with that. That being said, I agree that my relationship with this movie has definitely changed, especially since starting law school. I don't know if it has changed where my perspective comes from. As a kid, I found the movie charming and endearing, funny, engrossing. The lead character's obviously very charismatic. And the sequel, I find to be kind of in the same vein. Like, I find them to be a little bit bookended of each other. But then again, both movies are very significantly made by, obviously, Reese Witherspoon, and then some of the side characters and what they end up being in the course of the film. But since starting law school, I find this movie to be even more ridiculous than I think I found it as a kid, because there's just so much, let's say, legal inaccuracy that is a part of this movie. So, Dad, we turn to you, Mr. Legal Accuracy himself, who does not cherish his moments of watching either legal films or television due to their inaccuracies. As I slowly morph further into you, what is your relationship with the film?
Oh, my relationship with the film is I'm pretty sure I rented it once and watched it with your mother, probably after you guys were all in bed. That's
and
about
you
it.
Haven't seen it since?
I probably watched bits and pieces while one of the countless times you guys were watching it. Or it was playing or blaring from the back seat of the van while we were driving to Louisiana or South Carolina or Washington, D.C. or Texas. So, yeah.
Okay, then.
I'd probably have seen it maybe one other time in total, but I can't say exactly.
I was going to say, how have you escaped watching this movie?
I don't know. I've like I said, I probably have seen it, but I've seen so many bits and pieces or listened to so many bits and pieces, it's hard to disseminate exactly when and where.
Fair enough. Let's turn back to my sisters here. Why did this film seem to inspire both of you as kids, if you can recall?
It was a film that really showed that you could do anything and be anyone. I mean, she was unashamedly herself at all times. And I loved that she was aiming to always prove that she could do something when people told her she couldn't. I loved doing that too. Is like somebody says you can't do something, well, watch me. I'm going to do it anyways. Especially as a blonde woman, that kind of was fun to watch somebody else accomplish so much. Now, as an adult, I have a different connection with it, but it's still about people underestimating you or others and rooting for them to succeed anyways. As a teacher, that's very common for my students, where they're underestimated because of the language barrier or where they come from or any of that. And it's like, but they are smart and they're capable and they can do anything just like anyone else.
This is definitely a film that reminded me a lot about determination. It always has. It's part of what inspired me, is just that if you can do whatever you want, but you have to have the willpower and the work ethic to do it. That is part of, sometimes the hardest part, is inspiring yourself to go out and actually say, I'm going to do or set out to do this one thing that's incredibly difficult, that everyone, despite whatever's going on in my life, I'm going to do this anyway. And that's, I think, a lot of the reason that people tell you can't do these things is because in their head they couldn't, or it's too challenging for the average person, and therefore it's something that they can't see anyone else putting in the effort to actually achieve. Especially in circumstances where it comes to education such as this, getting in one of the top universities in the country, it's not something that necessarily should have been easy for most people, and that's part of the reason I think that everybody was so shocked when she made it look easy. But that was sheerly by work ethic, putting in the time and the effort, and showing that you can achieve these things, but you have to work for them.
Now, Allyson, you are the self-professed Reese Witherspoon superfan. Is this her best role?
No. It's her most iconic role. But her best role is either going to be I love her in Sweet Home Alabama. That's one of my absolute favorites. But then The Blind Side.
She's not in The Blind Side.
Not The Blind Side. What's the one she's in where she helps the football player?
The football player?
Hold on. I don't watch it very often. Or let's go with the Johnny Cash one.
So her Oscar-winning role in Walk the Line.
That's
as June Carter Cash.
Yeah, I don't really watch that one very often, but she is definitely a great actress in that. There's only been one movie of hers that I didn't really like, Vanity Fair. I've tried watching it several times. I just can't get through it. But otherwise, I watch all of her productions that she's been doing lately with Sunshine. Mm-hmm. I watch all of her TV shows she does. I watch any movie her name's attached to. Yeah, there's only besides Vanity Fair, I think there's one other that I did not like. But I even go back sometimes into the 90s and watch some of her original pieces. Mm-hmm. But Legally Blonde is her most iconic. Anytime you think of Reese Witherspoon, you think of Elle Woods.
I would agree it's her most iconic. I actually think this might be her best role because it's the one that's most reliant on her. The movie really doesn't work if she is not at the centerpiece. I don't know if there are too many other actresses that can make this role as charismatic, as engaging, as sweet, but not saccharine, and carry kind of the entire thing on their back. This is a movie entirely made because of her.
Well, she was supposed to be a sarcastic, kind of bitter about a lot of things, and she chose not to. She chose to keep it fun and lighthearted, and that's what really made people fall in love with the character and actually make this last, because it was somebody you could love and somebody you could relate to.
Mm-hmm. Again, though, I agree that it's her most iconic. I would actually argue, though, that despite the fact that this was a role built for her, and I don't really see that anybody else could do it, I'm not sure it's her best role. I would probably say Wild.
Wild was good.
Or The Good Lie.
I liked Wild, but I don't think that was her best. I mean, she was good in it.
What do you think, Dad?
I think more likely this is her best role because it is the most reliant upon her, as you've indicated, Tom. I do like her in Walk the Line because there was a lot to that role. She had to do her own singing. She did a nice job of portraying June Carter Cash. I'd say it would be between those two roles. Hard to dismiss an Academy Award-winning performance. But again, I think, as Alice said, you can't think of Reese Witherspoon without thinking of Legally Blonde.
So do you have a plot summary ready for us, Pop?
Set against the polished halls of Harvard Law, this modern fable follows a young woman, Reese Witherspoon, whose sunny confidence and impeccable style mask a sharp mind waiting to be taken seriously. When she enrolls to win back a beau, she instead confronts a world eager to underestimate her and finds her own voice in the process. A campus comedy becomes a courtroom coming-of-age tale, celebrating wit, resilience, and the courage to surprise everyone, including oneself.
Thank you, Dad. So what is the film about? We've kind of touched on a few different themes here, but let's drive right at it.
Finding the courage to be yourself. It's a big one, I think. Not being afraid to be yourself, I should say.
For me, it's about not underestimating yourself or letting others underestimate you and pushing through even when others, including yourself, originally say, I can't do this, it's too hard, and you need to keep going. You need to keep proving that you can do anything.
It's the yin and yang between ability and beauty. I mean, I'm not going to say she was people underestimated her, but it's not like she didn't have ability or some advantages that most people don't. I mean, she even mentions in there she lived across the street from Tori Spelling.
Aaron Spelling.
Aaron Spelling? Okay.
Aaron Spelling.
It's in Bel Air. She lived in Bel Air. It's not like she grew up in poverty or that her parents didn't have brains, because they wouldn't have had that much money if there weren't brains someplace in the family. So it's not like she just came from nothing. But it ultimately comes down to that. And this is a yin and yang that a lot of female lawyers have problems with. How much do I look feminine without feeling like I'm using my beauty to influence people in the court, versus do I want to be taken seriously for my intellect, so they dress down and try to look more mannish? It's constantly going on, and you see both polar opposites every time you go to a situation or go to a courtroom or any legal situation with a female lawyer involved.
I don't think it's more than just lawyers, too. I mean, there's other professions where women will be genderfied, that you can't be pretty and be accomplished at that job, or you're seen as, you're not competent. You got this because you're pretty. You got this because you have something.
And what it ultimately comes down to is this thought process that I discovered in my own self, which is your understanding or ability to think you can do something that you didn't achieve or think about before. When I was growing up and I was in high school, I was really good at acting and performing and being funny and doing comedy. If somebody would have told me I had the ability to do something like that, who knows? I could have probably tried to get into something like Second City, worked my way up to SNL, etc. Never in my mind ever would I have thought that was even a possibility. It's just something that never occurred to me. This gives women the opportunity to understand that if they have some ability, every door is open to them if they chose to take it.
And that's the part that I would have emphasized here. particularly. So ironically, a couple of days ago, we watched this in class that I had. I'm taking a law, literature, and film class this summer for my upper level writing course. But we watched this one 2 days ago. Even though we were recording on it, it was just the timing seemed to mark up. And somebody made the exact point in the final courtroom scene. The witness is a woman, the prosecutor is a woman, the judge is a woman, the defendant is a woman. It's not that women were not a part of the legal profession. It was that they all seemed like they were tailoring themselves a little bit more to a quote-unquote masculine ideal of what the profession should be. They were all in some sort of either a pantsuit or something very gray. It was very stripped back. It was narrow
Not
corners.
overly styled.
You know, the way that even their hairstyling was more muted, whereas she's in all pink, which is to highlight that contrast between the styles. It's not that women are not part of the profession, but it's women have to adhere themselves to a male-dominated, idealistic version of what they can be in this field. And so, to me, the movie is really about, can women be different forms of an identity within this structure, this system, and still be taken seriously, but also prove that they belong in these spaces. She belongs at Harvard, and multiple people start to come around to that idea to tell her to stay. She belongs in a courtroom by the end, or at least theoretically proves that she can hang with other people, that she can prove herself to be at least a level of quality or adversary, a colleague of her professor that was, I'm trying to think of the word, chauvinistic. So because of these things, I find it to be, this movie is similar in how we talked about when Barack Obama was first elected, that just the mere presence of his face, the way he looked in that office, now opened the possibility that other people that looked like him could see themselves in those spaces now. Or at least that was not a path that was closed off. And so I would agree with you there, Dad, that that's the biggest takeaway for me in this film. Did you know? A perfect score on the LSAT or LSAT exam is a 180. Therefore, L's score of 179 puts her in the top 0.1% of all applicants. Oh, by the way, I'm pretty sure I either got like a 158 or a 159 for whatever it's worth. Not great, not terrible. It was okay. I think the average is like a 153 or 154. So I'm slightly above average, just in case anybody was curious. Did you know? The actress who played Elle's mom, Tane McClure, had a much bigger role, but they cut much of it during editing because a lot of her dialogue was very racy. They toned down the overall picture and cut everyone's dialogue so that it could go from an MPAA rating R to PG-13. I would like to eventually see the R-rated version of this movie. Did you know? Elle Woods wears 40 different hairstyles throughout this movie. I would not have guessed.
The amount of times they had to dye her hair was insane. Like, if you ever listen to her talk about it, like, they were constantly having to re-dye her hair and get the perfect color, and so she had such damaged hair by the end because they were bleaching it.
Mm-hmm. Did you know? Elle Woods was named after Elle magazine. Amanda Brown, author of Legally Blonde, the novel on which the movie was based, spent her time at Stanford Law School reading copies of Elle magazine. I don't know. Sure. Did you know? In the novel, Elle is a member of Delta Gamma, an international sorority which is part of the Pan-Hellenic Conference. I hope I got that right. It was changed to Delta Nu to avoid problems with the real organization.
And yes, you did pronounce that right.
Okay, cool. Got it on the first try. Didn't even look it up. Did you know? Christina Applegate was offered the role of Elle Woods. She turned it down because she didn't want to portray another dumb blonde role. She now says that she regrets her decision. Charlize Theron, Gwyneth Paltrow, Alicia Silverstone, Katherine Heigl, Mia Jovovich, and Jennifer Love Hewitt were all considered for Elle Woods. So the fact that this was supposedly built around Reese Witherspoon is not accurate.
That was the one they originally had thought of, and then the studio was giving backlash because they said she wasn't well known enough. So that's why the other actors were considered.
Did you know? Emmett, Luke Wilson, jokingly asks Elle, Reese Witherspoon, "How do you think I would look as a blonde?" This was actually a reference to Wilson's real-life brother, Owen Wilson, who looks similar, but with blonde hair. And also a more crooked nose. There had to have been like a football injury or something along the line. Yeah. That's like his defining feature anymore. That looks like a good spot for our first break. We'll be right back. Before we jump back into the episode, next week for our 321st episode, we discuss Spirited Away from 2001, celebrating its 25th anniversary. Written and directed by Hayao Miyazaki, cinematography by Atsushi Akui, music by Joe Hisaishi, edited by Takashi Sayama, starring Rumi Hiragi, Miya Irino, and Mari Natsuki. You won't want to miss that one, so watch ahead of the show by searching the Real Good app to find where it's streaming for you. That's REELGOOD. Before we get too much further, let's check in with our guests. First off, Sarah, what are you working on, and where can people find you?
I'm working on the same thing as last time. I am still working on that paper. I'm hoping to get published here shortly in one of the upcoming periodicals by the end of the year.
And Allyson, I think people are interested to find out why you're sewing through this entire episode.
My husband and I are big history buffs, and the 250th U.S., 4th of July is coming up. And so I've been making all of our outfits so we can be part of the reenactments for that.
Did you ever start your own YouTube channel or any of the other things you had talked about?
I started recording some things, but I've never posted any of them. I don't know how to do anything. And I don't have enough cameras. And
not only is she going to participate in some of the reenactments, they're going to Williamsburg, colonial Williamsburg, to participate in them.
I'm so excited. On July 4th, we're going to be standing out in our full 1776 outfits from head to toe that I've made. And we're going to be listening to them read the Declaration of Independence. And yeah, like I said, we're history nerds.
Okay, so to clarify, you are currently sewing your own costume for said event.
Well, I just finished Keith's. That's the one that I was working on when we started this. And he's got that, and then I have to put the buttons on it yet. Now I'm working on a piece of mine, yes.
And Dad, what are you working on, and where can people find you?
Well, I've got my own show that I'm doing live on YouTube on Mondays at 11 o'clock Central Daylight Time. That is Sidebar by Dana Duncan. It's available we will eventually have everything uploaded into the website, as well as social media clips disseminating through the actual platforms for podcasts as well. Still trying to get everything up and going. It's been trying to work it in within my schedule. I have a little bit more time coming up over the next couple of weeks. I'm hoping to get to it. So other than that, I could just continue to stay busy with work, trying to find time for some of my other projects.
Sounds good. Now, I did, as you pointed out during the break, miss a glaring opportunity for you to completely break down this film. So what are the legal strengths and weaknesses of Legally Blonde?
Without disparaging the movie itself, Legally Blonde is to the legal profession what Elmer Fudd is to hunting.
That is quite the comparison.
Very, very bad.
I would fire any associate who secretly met with a client. Not to mention the fact that I'm not sure there's attorney-client privilege with a law school associate who's an intern. I'm going to say
Or there's
maybe
no
there is.
attorney-client privilege while on a recorded line across the counter with the phones.
Yeah. So, second, she wouldn't have been held in custody. She wasn't a big flight risk. She had tons of money. They would have posted bail. She wouldn't have been in custody. Third, where's the paraffin test? That would have been the first thing I would have been looking for, because she should have had gunpowder on her hands when she was arrested. No paraffin test. What about the angle of the bullet? You can tell from the angle of the bullet how tall the person was, probably, who was shooting them. The gun's missing? Well, that's a big problem. Did they have anything to tie the gun to her? What caliber was the bullet? I mean, was there something that showed that there was a gun of similar ilk that was owned by the defendant, or that she had access to such a gun? Senior attorney and the development of the defense. The senior attorney does not sit around and say she's lying or this is a stupid case or whatever to the associates and to the other people in the group, because you're trying to build a defense. You're not trying to tear down your client before you ever start. Completely ridiculous. No judge would let a first-year law student lead a murder trial. Never. It's not happening. I don't care if it was Clarence Darrow in law school. They're not going to be doing it.
Who is Clarence Darrow?
One of the most famous defense attorneys in the history of the United States.
Okay.
One of the great true orators of legalese and defense mechanisms. A true titan of the industry.
Yes. Moreover, the statute or regulation that they were relying on does not allow a first-year law student to do it.
It only
They had to be a
allows
third-year law student.
Yep.
You must have completed or currently enrolled in an evidence or trial practice. I didn't see her doing any of that in law school. She had to have a certification from the dean. She didn't come in with it. And the supervisor must be a member of the bar who assumes personal professional responsibility for the student's work. It goes through a whole provision. They would have had to have put Luke Wilson on the stand and have him testify into the record that he acknowledges or knows his responsibilities.
It also doesn't get around the fact that Luke Wilson really should have been the attorney in this situation, and she should have just been the legal aid since he believed in her anyway and was clearly a better attorney. That also doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but okay.
And then the last thing, I did 150 trials. One time did I get a client or a defendant to say they were lying on the stand. One time. And it caught everybody by such surprise that they were like, huh?
You mean a witness or the defendant? You said the defendant.
The witness. Excuse
Okay.
me. To admit they were lying. So that doesn't happen. This isn't Perry Mason like that happens every week.
Yes, yet another dated reference by you.
Hey, Perry Mason was brought
Hey,
back.
no, they brought that back.
They did, but even then they didn't have like witness reveals on the stand.
And the first thing you do is not say the case is dismissed if you're the judge. You say, I'm advising you of your constitutional rights against self-incrimination, and then immediately send the jury out of the room and have the witness taken back so she can confer with counsel, and you appoint an attorney before anything further is done. Then there has to be a motion made by the state as to what their intent is to do at this point in time. The judge just doesn't go sua sponte, oh, I'm just dismissing the case. So, yeah. I have more if I really wanted to, but I figure I've droned on long enough.
It wouldn't be very entertaining if it followed all the procedures. It'd be too long.
That is true. You have to cut out some of those things. The legal realism does get in the way of the message that this is attempting to send. However, one of the other big ones that's probably even more egregious here is posing yourself as an attorney, especially as a first-year law student, to anyone and doing the improper practice of law or the illegal practice of law as a law student. If anyone ever found that out, she would be prohibited from ever taking the bar anywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She got the dog back.
What?
She got the dog back. That's what she said.
Okay.
Well, that is important because getting a dog back is worth your career.
Mm-hmm. And the potential exponential versions of good that you may or may not be able to help with, but sure.
It's for entertainment, guys.
I was asked to give a legal assessment of the film.
It's true. And by Dad's example, Elmer Fudd is also an entertainer.
I almost had you.
No, I just held the cup in case it hit me. But yes, you caught me while I was taking a gulp. That being said, let's move forward. We left off at best performances. Dad, who did you have down?
Reese Witherspoon.
Yeah, that's unquestionable here. I already mentioned it before, but just the totality of the weight that's on her shoulders in this role, it's hands down. And I also have her for charismatic for what it's worth.
Yeah, me too.
I don't
think there's really anyone else that you could do for most charismatic.
For most charismatic, you got Paulette.
Oh, I was going to say Allison's going to nominate Bruiser Woods.
Well, that would be funny, but no, Paulette, she steals the show. Every time she's on screen, she just, she lights up everything.
Secondary performance, actually.
I had her for best secondary as well, but I like her for charismatic. She's just...
Okay. I have somebody else for secondary. I have Victor Garber for secondary. I just love him. I think he's great. Or anytime he's in a film, I think he's great. And for charismatic, it takes something to come off as a frigid bitch and still be noticeable on screen. So I have Selma Blair.
All right, so we have Jennifer Coolidge for various different things. We didn't necessarily talk about her all that much. She is an interesting character, to be clear, who's constantly just kind of playing the same character over and over in various different things or iterations.
No, I don't think so.
She's made a career out of that character. Let's just put it that way. She has more range than that because she was at Second City with the same time as Steve Carell. And for that matter, Stephen Colbert.
Really?
Mm-hmm. So she would have had more talent than that. But she found a character, and she's just going to write it, and she's doing pretty well because I'm sure they're paying her quite a bit for those Discover card commercials.
Well, I'm sure.
Well, she became kind of a big name again in the last, 5 to 10 years.
Because of White Lotus.
Yeah.
And being Mike White's muse, as he called her. Which is also interesting, to say the least. That being said, Victor Garber brings a certain level of gravitas and upper crust white guy to every role he's ever been in. It's his voice, his tenor, the way he just kind of looks. He screams dad in a tweed jacket and a sweater vest. And it's no wonder that Dad likes him.
Are we talking about the same man who listens to yacht rock?
There are a lot more people that apparently love yacht rock. I am not one of them, but it's apparently a thing.
I like music I can sing along with.
You can sing along with a lot of music.
I know.
That isn't yacht rock. You could sing along with R&B.
Uh-huh. Pop?
I want to see Dad singing along to Genuine.
That would make my day.
I don't know which of the two of you girls made a big deal when I was singing along with Linkin Park.
Not I.
That would be me.
Yeah.
I also made a big deal when you would try to sing along to Soulja Boy.
I'm just a bachelor, looking for a partner. Come on, Dad.
Tom, if you're going to sing that, you have to get your feather duster out.
My feather duster?
Oh, you must not remember when we lived together during COVID. I have the video.
Oh, that's right. Now I remember that now. I completely forgot about that. Me dancing to Pony while feather dusting. I think it was a Swiffer duster, not a feather duster, but still.
Okay.
I've done some interesting gyrations in my day. Moving on. Who had Selma Blair for charismatic?
I did.
Oh, okay. Sure.
Okay.
Cool.
Gave you my reason.
That you did. Moving on. We'll go to best scene then. I have 5 scenes here. I have Admissions, which is the entire montage of Elle trying to get into Harvard, topped off with her bikini-clad entrance essay video, which also would not have been sent. That's kind of a weird way of doing it, but certainly entertaining. Then I have Girl Power Montage, which is immediately following Warner saying that she's not smart enough to be there with the Power Girl song and all that. I have the Bend and Snap, which, let's face it, my sisters talked about a lot as a kid.
I was talking about it last night.
Then I have Enrique, which somebody will have to explain to me why he was lying on the stand about being involved with her anyway. That still doesn't make much sense to me. Was he being paid off? Was he in league with Chutney? What exactly was going on with that? That they never really explain it or take any time. And then I have Perm, which is a moniker for the final moments of the film and the Perry Mason moment, as Dad alluded to. Did I miss any scenes or anything else anyone would like to nominate?
I have 2 others.
What do you have, Allyson?
I have when Paulette gets her dog back, and the scene where the professor is in the hair salon, and she is in the hair salon, and she talks to Elle and convinces her to try again, and like that changes the whole thing. So I think that's an important
had
scene.
that one as well, and I also had the graduation. It's kind of the synopsis and summary. It talks a lot about, getting through the program, and it kind of lays to bed a lot of the overall ending questions for what happened.
We did it!
So, yes.
Yeah. I did hear from somebody this week when we discussed the film in class that the original ending just had Elle and Emmett smooching on the front steps of the courthouse, and that apparently didn't do well with test audiences, so they substituted it with the graduation moment. And then there were still people that didn't care for that because at the end of the day, the big moment where the reveal as they held back is that he was going to propose to her. So the whole movie very much, despite belonging in law school, that she could have a career, was supposedly still always about getting to the point of being married. But I digress. All right, so we have Admissions, Girl Power Montage, Rufus, Bend and Snap, Enrique, Salon Catharsis, Perm, and Graduation. Out of these, what is the best scene?
The perm scene. I love that. I always still remember that one.
I have that as both my favorite scene and the most indelible moment, because those are the things that I immediately think about. But to me, the one that is most signifying to this movie, that is the most...
Bend and Snap?
No, eminently powerful, is the Girl Power Montage. The can-do attitude, the background music, her getting the Mac laptop amongst this sea of just non-colorful laptops, let's say, and getting to work and proving herself capable of standing with everybody else.
I have Enrique for the best scene. Because if somebody asks me what it takes to be a good lawyer, I say get a wide range of experiences. Do a ton of different jobs before or during law school. Experience as many different things, because you're amazed at what little pieces of information that you've collected outside of the practice of law, which will become useful in a trial. And that just exemplifies that. Knowing the shoes and all that stuff. That's the kind of thing that happens all the time.
But getting a witness to confess on the stand in that sort of way with an interruption of, "You bitch," that does not happen.
No, that does not.
Also, his line of questioning is quite odd. You're just going to move him through a series of yeses, and then he's going to not notice the one question of, "Who's your boyfriend?" or "What's your boyfriend's name?"
No, he asked for a specific timeline for the second question. How long have you been in a relationship with Mrs. Wyndham?
Yes, he was trying to do the repetition. That is what you do in cross-examination. You're trying to get as many yeses or as many questions in a series. You're trying to build a certain repetition for them to concede certain answers to, but you're not going to sneak in a question and all of a sudden trip them up because you asked like 3 or 4 very easy questions and then all of a sudden slip one else in there.
And it also is very risky because you don't know how he's going to answer.
You never ask a question you don't already know the answer to.
Correct.
All right. So then, favorite scene, I already gave mine. It's the final confrontation with Chutney and the perm. What was everyone else's favorite scene?
That's definitely one that I remember.
Mine is Professor Stromwell. You know, it's her having or feeling this immense amount of guilt and like, I'm not good enough and no matter what I do, I will never be good enough. And having somebody else step in and say, "Excuse me, that's not the person that I'm familiar with that I thought you were," was kind of a very important moment of that entire thing. It made her turn around and try again.
Now, I just want to take a brief moment to pause where we're at in the movie for something very important. To all the potential law students out there who may be listening to this episode, the last time that I went, because most of my law school education so far has been in an online format, but the last time that we had to physically go to the school, we did some sort of exercise with a mock trial kind of evaluation that, given that none of us had evidence yet, felt grossly underprepared to be able to do because, frankly, only because I knew a defense attorney, I watched him in court, and I've been watching legal movies with him ever since. I know most of the objections for evidentiary support and whatnot, but I was the only one making objections because nobody else could actually say why they were objecting to anything. That being said, we were all raked over the coals for our lack of ability in this exercise, despite the fact we were underprepared and didn't have enough time to watch the stupid YouTube videos that they did provide, which were not going to be adequate enough to support the actual exercise that we were doing. But lo and behold, I did need reassurance from my managing partner that I actually was decent at my job. And I just want to say to everyone currently or thinking about going through law school, if you don't think that you are failing, that you are an abject failure, that you will flunk out at some point during each semester of law school, frankly, it should happen once every about 4 weeks. You're not doing law school correctly.
Yeah. My second show of my own personal podcast was about law school and what little value law school actually provides to you and how much of an impact or lack of impact it actually has on your ability to earn money and have a legal career. But anyway.
Personally, I would suggest an overhaul of the entire legal education system wherein you would actually take on like a learner's permit. So you'd take the LSAT or the bar exam as the initial entrance point, get a learner's permit, then be an apprentice for a lawyer for X number of years and get them to certify that you have done enough training to be a practicing attorney. And at that point, maybe you can have a general bar exam that you can study for that final moniker. But this notion that law school prepares you for the actual practice of law seems to be rather bunk, because at times it does not mirror with my own experience working more or less as a legal representative already while going through law school.
I personally think you'd only need 1 year of law school, and you do it on a quad system. And that should give you a basis, and from there you go into an apprenticeship. You get hired by a law firm, you work for that law firm, you have to produce so many hours, and then you get your certification. In fact, you would probably have to at least have some court experience doing public defender's work or something where you would actually have a prosecutor or a judge also sign off as showing levels of competence. You could work it out, but just remember the old adage is law school like having a root canal through your anus.
Yes. Now, to go on further with my apprenticeship idea, one of the problems that we're having right now is just the barriers of entry to the legal profession and not having enough lawyers for the amount of legal services that are needed. How do you solve for that? You take away the biggest part of the cost, the $120,000 to $150,000 that you have to spend on 3 years of law school, and instead make you work maybe for pittance or at least an entrance point fee as a lawyer, but at least you're making money instead of paying money. And you get more people into the system helping out. Employers get more opportunities to have junior lawyers or associates learn the practice. To me, it makes a whole lot of sense, but I don't know. What do I know? I'm just me. By the way, I would like to say hi to my law lit and film class professor who is likely listening to this a couple of weeks from now.
Okay. I'll score big points at Marquette if I ever propose eliminating most of law school.
The thing is, you probably get all of the actual lawyers who are practicing to agree with that, and you get all of the law professors to throw a huge stink. But I digress. Most indelible moment, I have the final trial scene, as I mentioned before. Anybody have anything different?
Okay, well, first off, my favorite scene is admissions. And that's because I have a feeling that that's not that far off from what actually goes on in an admissions process.
A bunch of white guys sitting around in a room evaluating who gets in or not?
Yeah. I have a feeling that's a lot what it's like. Because I think it's absurd. I think it's completely arbitrary.
The admission process is likely very absurd and arbitrary. I will agree to that. But I don't think it's nearly so formulaic.
Probably not. But anyway, my most indelible is the perm.
I like the bend and snap. That's the one everyone remembers, and even people who haven't seen the movie know bend and snap. Like,
yes, they do.
Okay, I guess you see the difference between the lawyers in the room and the women.
Hey, it's very iconic. I would not say that it's the most indelible.
I love that scene, but I also, it's not one that I want the movie to always be remembered by, but it's the one that most people do remember just because it's so funny.
Yep.
So, Sarah, what is your most indelible then if you're disagreeing? If that's not your...
I agree with the perm as the most indelible moment. I think it is the, pinnacle of the film. It's, the high point. It gets us to exactly what we're supposed to be feeling in that moment. I do agree with Allyson that Bend and Snap is highly iconic, but I think when most people watch this film and think about one scene in particular, it is the trial scene, which is part of the reason that when I have heard people talk about this film and talk about the second film, that they're so upset that there is not a trial scene in Legally Blonde 2, Red, White, and Blonde. So it is by far the most well-known thing. Is the Bend and Snap funny? Is it iconic? Yes, it is. It is not the point. It is not the most indelible moment of this film.
Well, that looks like a good spot for our second break. We'll be right back. Before we jump back into the episode, and before we get to the Stanley Rubric in a minute, if you're ever curious about our Master Greatest Movies of All Time list that has every graded movie we've ever discussed on the show, there's a link in the episode description of every episode of this show, or you can go to RonnieDuncanStudios.com and find it as the top entry on the Greatest Movie of All Time podcast show page. That is the grades we've done so far for all 289 movies we've graded, and we continue to add more each week. Make sure to check that out as we go and follow along. Since we are pre-recording this episode, we will skip past In Memoriam and we will head right to Best Lines. So, ladies, get out your IMDb reference pages here. I will start here with Vivian. Nice outfit. L. Oh, I like your outfit too, except when I dress up as a frigid bitch, I try not to look so constipated.
L. I feel comfortable using legal jargon in everyday life. I object.
I don't think Brooke could have done this. Exercise gives you endorphins. Endorphins make you happy. Happy people just don't shoot their husbands. They just don't.
That's gonna be mine. All right. Well, when discussing getting into law school, what? Like it's hard?
Professor Callahan, do you think she just woke up one morning and said, I think I'll go to law school today?
Professor Stromwell, if you're going to let one stupid prick ruin your life, you're not the girl I thought you were.
It's a perfectly respectable place, Daddy.
Well, whoever said orange is the new pink was seriously disturbed.
Emmett, I can't believe you just called me a butthead. I don't think anybody has called me a butthead since the 9th grade. L, maybe not to your face.
L, for that matter, any masturbatory emission where the sperm is clearly not seeking an egg could be termed reckless abandonment. Professor Callahan, you've just won your case.
The rules of hair care are simple and finite. Any Cosmo girl would have known.
L, if I'm going to be a partner in a law firm by the time I'm 30, I need a boyfriend who's not such a complete bonehead.
And my final one, L. Did you see him? He's probably still scratching his head. Paulette, yeah, which must be a nice vacation for his balls.
L, I promised her. I can't break the bonds of sisterhood. Professor Callahan, screw sisterhood. This is a murder investigation, not some scandal at the sorority house.
L, when used appropriately, it has an 83% rate of return on a dinner invitation. It's called the bend and snap.
L, you must always have faith in people. And most importantly, you must always have faith in yourself.
Anyone have any remaining?
I have one more. I'll show you how valuable L Woods can be.
All right. Hearing no others, let's move to the Stanley Rubric. Legacy is up first. This is a measure of the legacy of the film approximately 5 years after it came out. So 2006 to today, what is the legacy of this film as shared between two equal yet separate groups, the industry and the audience, 5 and 5 points apiece for a total of 10. Dad, would you like to go first or second?
I will go second.
Okay. On the industry, I do not think that this movie has nearly as much significance inside the industry as it does for the audience. I think this is a much bigger movie outside of Hollywood than it is inside. It has always been somewhat of a cult movie. Didn't make a ton of money in its initial viewing, and while there is a sequel and there's been remakes and other such things that are now doing this, I don't know, is it a it was a prequel series on Amazon?
It's a prequel series, and it's already been picked up for season 2.
Okay. Even so, I think at best you're looking at a 3 here because Reese Witherspoon's career and productivity in that is more a product of herself than it is necessarily this movie or this franchise. Yes, she is iconically known for it, but to me, the audience will always outweigh, and their appetite for this franchise, this movie, this character will always outweigh what Hollywood actually thinks of it, which is it's a cult movie or it's a cult franchise. And so I have this at a 3 for the industry. I have it a 4.5 for the audience. I don't think this is universally translatable across everything, but it is well known. I think anybody that's under the age of 40, well, no, I shouldn't say that. I think there are probably some young people that are not familiar with this movie that didn't grow up with it. But anybody probably from about age 25 through, let's say, 50 is likely familiar with this movie and this franchise. I think it cuts across a lot of different demographics. So I'm going to have a 4.5 there, and I will say a 7.5 as our opening number.
For the industry, I will agree with you for the most part. In fact, Reese Witherspoon made a series after this of kind of not the greatest rom-coms. A couple of them were actually pretty bad and such. After she won the Academy Award, you thought she was going to have a big bump. She really didn't have that big of a bump, and she started struggling to find parts that she liked. This is why she started her own production company, so that she could control the stories and put herself into vehicles that she wanted to be in. So I'm at a 3 there. For the public, let me just indicate, I made my disparaging comment about it legally, but this has had great influence because it did portray the opportunity to exemplify power in a situation where women have for thousands of years been in subservient roles. This gave women the idea that you could be put into a position of power where you would be on an equal playing field with men, which is what the big thrill or the big enticement is for law school for women, and why there are more women in law school now than there are men. So I think it's had a big influence overall for the society, and it's still a very popular film. You can talk to people. Most people have seen it, or they know of it, or know parts of it and things about it. So I'm going to go with I've been going back and forth between a 4 and a 4.5. I'll go 4.5. So I'm at 7.5 also.
All right, so we have matching scores to start. Ladies, which of you would like to go?
I think you have a point. This isn't a film that does have a lot of industry, but I do think that a big part of the reason that I don't think you're seeing is not that she was necessarily struggling to find parts she was okay with. She was struggling to find parts where it was like a strong female lead, which is why she has her own company. And they've done a lot. They've produced so many different things, from film, television. You know, she's got her own book list now. She's done a lot of stuff. And by and far, her name was built off the back of this film. So, you know, we wouldn't have films out like Wild, Where the Crawdads Sing, anything like that, had not been for the fact that she was so well known. And there aren't a lot of films to this day where there is a strong female lead. It's still something that is a very hard thing, especially because I would want to say that there are a lot of male writers in Hollywood that don't know how to write a strong female lead where it comes off as authentic. So for that, I want to give it a 4. It really did start a movement of women in film, I want to say. It's hard to really ding it. I mean, I grew up with this. I still know people in high school and whatever that knew this movie, had it played for them when they were young. It was kind of one of those things, and it's hard to give it a straight up 5, so I'm going to go with a 4.5 and give this an 8.5.
I gave it a 4.5 for industry because it did, as Sarah was saying, change the female-led thing a lot. There was not much going on for female-led before this, especially comedies. And this made her so strong, and then she has been able to take that power and go forward into future generations. It really cemented her as a superstar and soared her career and helped her accomplish all these things. And it's still referenced today in great screenplays and as a great movie. So I gave that a 4.5. And for public, I also gave it a 4.5 because it still continues to inspire women in multiple fields, but especially to go to law school. It's had many spin-offs with Broadway musical, the prequel, the sequel, all that. People, if you wear a costume, a Halloween costume of Elle Woods or any of that, like, people know the reference. People are quoting it, and Elle Woods is just a very famous name. So, I had a 9 overall.
And that is an 8.13 average between the four of us. Moving on, let's go to impact and significance. This is a measure of the impact and significance among the same two groups as the last category. However, this time we are examining the initial 5 years after its release. So 2001 to 2006, what is the impact and significance among those same two groups, the industry and the audience? 5 and 5 points apiece for a total of 10. Since I led off the last category, Dad, let's let you start here.
I don't think it had a huge impact within the 5 years. I can't remember how long it took for the sequel to come out.
3 years.
Okay. So I think that I did look at that originally. So I'm at a 3 for the industry and I think it's because of the fact that the sequel came out. But it took a while for this film to really find legs and to start becoming more in the public consciousness. For the public itself, I'm going to give it the same. I'm going to say it's a 3 because it took a while for it to find its legs. I think more towards the end of the 5 years, it was more popular, but it didn't draw that well. It wasn't that well known, and it really was not that popular until it started coming out on streaming and DVD sales. So I'm at a 6 overall.
And I couldn't be more different than my co-host on this one. I think his argument that it somehow was not popular just is unfounded. This was incredibly high in DVD sales because that's the only way that you were going to get it anywhere near the type of cultural impact that it seemed to have at the time. It was the 32nd finishing movie at the box office, yet still somehow has this upswing of momentum that it required a sequel just 3 years later. That being said, while I wouldn't say Luke Wilson made a name for himself as a result of this movie, nor could I say that of Jennifer Coolidge, as they had some other things going on around the same time. Luke Wilson is most notable for his association and familiarity, his childhood friend, Wes Anderson, and appearing in several of his films, including something like The Royal Tenenbaums just a couple of years later after this. I would say that this made Reese Witherspoon an A-list level talent. The sequel also bumps this up a slight layer for me, and the fact that within 5 years, she was an Oscar-winning actress. You could see the trajectory of where she was going through this film to at least through Walk the Line, and then eventually she had kind of a couple of years in the wilderness, let's say, after that, until she found kind of her own production company and recreated her career more or less. So as a result of that, I have this at a 3.5 and a 4.5. I have an 8.
For impact, I have to disagree with Dad. I think this qualifies as one that, obviously from the second film, it had enough viewership and enough traction that it qualified for a revisit. It's one that stayed in kind of people's minds. She did do a lot of other films at the time. I have no idea what rom-coms you were discussing of hers that were quote-unquote really bad. I'd like to know what you were thinking as far as that goes, because Allyson and I might deeply disagree with you, especially on a few of those.
I think his point was more they were not memorable, because none of the ones that she made during this period of time have a certain level of notoriety beyond super fans of her personally.
They weren't big box office draws. They didn't get great reviews. The scripts weren't solid.
Like Sweet Home Alabama has a critic rating that is in the toilet.
Okay. I think overall this has had a large impact because, again, I think that over time, this did kind of introduce this entire principle of having a strong female lead films. We see a lot more of that as we start going into films in the early 2000s. It does, I feel like, show up in other films that, you can have female-led films that actually work and work well. For that, I give it a 4. For significance, we're talking long-term here. I think this movie has aged quite well for what it was. I mean, obviously, much like Clueless at times, it does have some of those, early 2000s kind of ditzy moments, which at the time made it very relatable, kind of goofy, comedy-esque. but for the overall meaning, it's still very poignant. And for that, I'd like to give the significance 4.5, as just from the sheer fact that it's still a well-known movie and it's extremely relatable. So that gives me a total of 8.5 overall.
I have much stronger opinions than most just because I love this movie. I think that it really helped revive female-centered movies and showed that women could be more than just a background piece or a stupid ditzy character or a romance. It allowed so much more. So I would give it 4.5 for the impact, and then for significance I also gave it a 4.5 because I think it really inspired a lot of young women, and it inspired a lot of people to look at themselves differently, as well as to start to view the stereotypes and change the views of the world in some ways.
So a couple of things I will push back on here from that is, one, where is the lack of romance in this movie? This movie is entirely about she is striving to prove herself to a former paramour, and then she does prove herself only to raise herself above him and his standards and seek the affection of another. So I don't see where you're going with that, but also I do want to tailor this. You said 4.5 for impact and 4.5 for significance, but that's not what the separation of the category is. It's industry versus audience. And you didn't really comment on either of those. Yes, I did. The audience was about breaking stereotypes and about inspiring people. So yes, I give it a 9 overall. But I think that yes, there's romance in it, but it was what drove her to go to law school. But it wasn't the main focus. It wasn't like everything was about just that. It was about her proving something and having to. It was
about proving something to herself, which I get. And I'm not necessarily sure that having a love interest classifies as quote-unquote romance.
It was the entire motivation for her character, seemingly, throughout the movie.
But it's not a rom-com.
No.
It's not?
No.
Oh, I don't know if I agree with that. But regardless, that is a 7.88 average between the four of us. Let's move to novelty here. Novelty is a measurement of the originality of anything having to do with the film, as well as the execution on that during the film. 5 and 5 points apiece between those two sets for a total of 10. I'll start here. It is somewhat original. There really isn't anything that I can say within the legal industry that is led by a woman. Even amongst legal films, it's also one of the few that very much deals with law school. The only other example that I think anybody could come up with was The Paper Chase, which Dad and I are familiar with. But outside of that, there are not a lot of law school movies. There are a lot of legal movies. And there is some courtroom drama aspect to this. The second half of the film does change a lot from the schooling portion and move it much more into a familiarized version of the courtroom. But most of the legal people are usually male-driven lawyers. A Few Good Men, led by Tom Cruise. A Time to Kill, Matthew McConaughey. Primal Fear, led by Richard Gere. And Justice for All, led by Al Pacino. And you start going down the list. I can't say that because this movie is somewhat borrowing, especially from the courtroom aspects of a lot of those other movies that came before it, but it is trying to do a different type of commentary on it, that it is not original, but I can't give it full points. I'm going to give it a 4 there. The execution is where this one suffers a bit for me. Reese Witherspoon is high wins above replacement, and I'm going to borrow a baseball term here because she's carrying so much weight of the film. But the Warner character is such a doofus. Selma Blair is good, but kind of, I don't know, it's tough to say because she plays the character to what we need from that character. But I don't know if I like the character per se. It's just kind of a weird dichotomy of it all, I think the script writing is pretty poor, to be quite honest. Like, a lot of it is carried by the fact that Reese Witherspoon changes the character, makes it more likable, more approachable, kind of changes the projection of the film from what is actually written on the page. And it's not doing anything cinematically gratifying with cinematography or with its storytelling that way. It's really a character-driven story by one person who is surpassing most of the other people in the movie. Occasionally, you'll have a Luke Wilson that does okay in this movie. He's respectable. He's at league average. The same somewhat with Jennifer Coolidge, but I don't think they're creating memorable characters that aren't somewhat impacted by the fact that the lead is somewhat carrying them throughout this movie. So I have that at a 3, and I have a 7 here.
You forgot about Victor Garber. I think he is a memorable character for being a villain in this.
So for originality, I'm going to give it, as I indicated, a pretty high score for originality because, again, same thing. You point out this is law school, but it in contrary to what my two guests say, this is a rom-com, and I'm giving it points over because I think this is a rom-com that changed the dynamics of rom-coms. This is one of the first times I really saw a rom-com where the woman was in complete control of the relationships around her. The men were coming to her, not her coming to the men. All right? And I think that you don't have some of the Hallmark movies that come out at Christmas where it's all about the woman and she's going back home without this film. Because I think it put this in a way that said it's okay for a woman to be the one who's the center and who is the one that is in control of whether or not she decides to go with this guy or that guy or however. So I'm giving this a 4.5 for the originality. I don't like the script even as much as Tom. Okay.
Okay.
Because I said there's so many piles. Let's just put it this way. If you put anybody in, let's just say that they would have put any one of the other people. Christina Applegate. Okay, I like her. She's a good actress. And most of the things she's done have been pretty good. But I think if you would have put her in this film, this would have been in a bin that's 3 for $1.
Well, to be fair, this movie was caught in a DVD bin of probably 3 for $1 at some point, too.
But I'm just saying, it wouldn't have had the impact. It would have been a memorable film. The script is poor. It doesn't make a lot of sense. It's got so many plot holes in it. It's kind of like the baker who screws up the cake and it's all flat and such. So then they just bury it in icing so that it looks good. That's what happened. Reese Witherspoon was the icing. The cake itself was lopsided and lumpy. All right?
I don't know if I agree with that metaphor. I think she's a lot of the substance, but she's making up for a lot of the deficiencies in the film. That I agree with.
Well, okay. So I'm at a 2.5. So a long way to come to the same overall numbers, Tom, but I'm at a 7.
I think this was incredibly original. You guys have basically made that case already for me. That would be easy to give 4.5 for myself. The script. The execution of this film. I think you're right. This would have been a completely different movie that wouldn't have done well had somebody else played the character. I don't think that, as much as I enjoy watching Christina Applegate, had she actually played this character, it would have come off completely different. We do know that Reese Witherspoon changed the character to be more likable, less sarcastic, less bitter about a lot of things, and I think that's what made it relatable and fun for so many girls my age. She does carry a lot of the weight of this film, but she is a powerhouse actress, and she pulled off a lot of things in here that would have been very difficult for anyone else to do. And frankly, she was given a lot of leeway to do that. They allowed her to make these changes. They allowed her to have this kind of contract and these kinds of things. It was a real opportunity for her to kind of experiment with the character, and for that, I'm having a hard time giving it anything less than a 4. So I'll give it an 8.
So you essentially agree with all of our points, but yet you bump it up an entire point, and we still don't know why.
Because she's part of the execution.
Yes, but she's making up for all the deficiencies that we talked about.
There are deficiencies, but I also give it a lot more credit than I think you guys do, because they had to give her a underlayer to work with. Had she not had the writing, had she not had the script where it left some of these decisions open to her to play with, it wouldn't have turned into the same film. Had the script been better, had they tried to narrow it more, it would have constricted her and not turned out the exact same way. And it probably would have fallen much more flat, if I'm being completely honest. Because part of the reason that everybody loves this movie is her bubbly nature, her, offhanded comments. Like, I think the fact that my resume is pink and scented it just gives it a little something extra, It's not like anybody can pull off saying something like that and not making it feel like it's somehow fake and extremely ditzy and not authentic.
Somehow she agrees with our points, yet we're both at a 7 and she's at an 8.5. Allison?
I would say the novelty it wasn't like revolutionary, but it did reverse some stereotypes. It didn't make femininity a bad thing. It wasn't something that you had to change or overcome in order to be successful. And we never see her really have that makeover moment where all of a sudden, she's different. Instead, everyone else in the movie changes. So for that, I give it a 4.5, just because, 4. We'll go with 4. Just because it wasn't revolutionary, but it changed a lot of other things. For the screenplay, I give it a 3.5 because I think that the way it was originally written, as she's described it, was a very different character and a very different thing, but she brought life and she brought the other things to it. And so it was her that made the character, not the script. So for that, I'd give that a 3.5. So I'm a 7.5 overall.
And that will be the average between the four of us, is a 7.5. Then let's move to classicness. This is a measure of how well or not the film has aged. We start at a baseline of a 6 instead of the median point being a 5, as it is easier to take points off than it is to add on. This category lives in the gray, so we turn to our senior graying nuance correspondent, Dana.
It's white, by the way. Anyway.
Yeah, but it doesn't make as much sense. It's in the context, so just roll with it.
I know. Anyway. All right. So I have a lot. All right. So I'm going to give it 2 points up for women's empowerment. Okay. It showed that women can do this job and can do things well. I'm going to give it a point down for the fact that it's still about her having to find a husband. She's in there because she's chasing after a guy, and then she ends up married to another guy and whatever. It can't just be about her and her profession or whatever. All right. A guy was murdered. This is a farcical nature of a homicide. No, nothing's talked about the poor guy who dies. It's just made a comedy or a joke out of it.
That's not true. There are references to the dead guy, but it's always about how big his dick is.
Yeah. I think it's a little farcical. So I'm going to give it a point down for that. Then the fact is that even for Harvard, this is a lily white cast. Where's the diversity? I mean, yeah, we have women in it and a strong women's role, but I mean, you can't at least even put one other black student in there? I mean, I don't think Harvard's that less. I mean, Harvard's more diverse than that. All right. 2, or the next one. The comedy does hold up. So I'm going to give it a point for that. And I think...
And there are black students and there are other races if you look in the graduation scene.
So okay. There is a black or Hispanic student is the lesbian woman in the cast.
Okay. Well, and there's also potted plants. So, but I'm not counting them either.
Sarah does make the point that the judge is black. I'll give her that.
True. Okay.
And one of the witnesses is Hispanic, even if he is a very over stereotypical version of a effeminate or homosexual Spanish man.
The stereotype homosexual, I'm giving it a point down as well, which was on my list. All right. The comedy does hold up. And I do think that this is becoming an iconic film. So I'm giving it a point for each. So all told, when you come to all of where I am and all I've had to discuss, I'm right back at a 6.
Okay. Timelessness, because this is now a 25-year-old film, is an additive +1. The legal inaccuracies, given how much we've raked this movie over the coals, is a -2. The lack of candor or seriousness about some issues in this, I get it, but it is supposed to be somewhat of a comedy. I mean, a rich dead guy, is the world really not better off without more dead rich guys? Let's, that's the socialist in me, but I'll be fine.
Yes, of course, banging a workout video maker.
Yeah, well, whatever. It's fine. I don't find as much of an issue with Harvard being as lily white, especially in law school, as you do. I don't have great opinions on the Ivy League. I think it's oversaturated most of our political and legal system and overweighted it towards a certain elitism that I don't care for. Whatever. But all told, I have this at a 5.
Well, you can always plug your West Wing podcast there and say that's part of the reason that it makes it so impactful when they nominate someone to the bench that's a former cop who went to night school for law school.
Okay. I don't need to plug that. But even that being said, Justice Sotomayor, I believe, had some background with the police before she went to Stanford. But then she also went to Yale. We have
the Supreme Court either went to Yale or Harvard.
Except for one.
That's right.
Who's the one?
Comey Barrett went to Notre Dame.
Ah.
That's our diversity play.
Yeah.
Moving on. Does somebody else want to give a score here?
Okay. Classicness. Starting at a 6. I think I've really got to give it at least 2 points up for the overall message and theme, and then what this kind of meant for the industry at the time, bringing in a revolution of female-led films and so many other things, making Reese Witherspoon into kind of a big celebrity at that point in time. I don't have the same problems necessarily with some of the legal flaws, so it's really hard to bring it down for that, really, because it kind of helps the film, and if you had done a lot of that, as Allie had said before, it might make it kind of boring, and also it would make it a little bit difficult for people to get as involved in, because they don't understand the full legal side.
Yes, 100%. I agree. I will not criticize the film because it is not realistic to the legal profession, because if you just did that, you would just have a documentary of a guy sitting behind a desk reading depositions or law review articles, and it would be the most boring thing I think you could possibly think of. Because that's what the practice of law is reading shit for 3 hours a day and then writing shit so that somebody else has to read your shit. That is not entertaining.
She does touch on that a little bit, because when Vivian comes into the room to get the deposition from her, she says, "Oh, you can have it. I've read it probably about 20 times already." And you can see the deposition she's handing her is, a thick packet. And, especially in, graduate schools and stuff, that is very relatable, of reading something over and over again. But back to the original point. I seem to have far less problems with this movie overall than you guys do. I think I'm going to give this a 7.5 and knock it down just a little bit for some of the flaws in... And some of the sometimes some of the background characters do feel a little flat. Just knock it down for that.
Okay.
Well, I didn't know there was so much math involved in this section at this point, so I did not do all the up and down stuff. So I just went with a 9 because I think that it's still comedic. The jokes still hit. The performance she did is still great. I mean, everyone still references it when they talk about Reese Witherspoon. And I think that besides the, the diversity stuff, and even they had some of that in there with gays and Hispanics and whatever. But I think it's still more relevant now than it was back then, even with a lot of topics. And even the jokes don't feel like they're inappropriate nowadays. They still are still funny and not something that we would necessarily not find in today's stuff.
I would like to point out, Dad, as far as the diversity issue, that it's 2001 in a film. The fact that there was some is
no.
little bit.
In 2001, there was a lot more diversity. There was a lot better equity of different things. I don't take that point all that critically, especially because the film is overly stereotypical to the point of making it comedy. The Enrique character is overemphasized as that type of gay character because people think it's funny. He is supposed to be a caricaturized version. That's the point.
Not to mention the fact that the Hispanic guy is the pool boy.
And Elle Woods is overly feminine to the point of all her pinkness to highlight the differences between the two for a comedic effect. But it goes for some cheap laughs in that, so that's part of the reason why we had it as low. So that is a 6.88 average between the four of us. Finally, let's move to rewatchability. Insert your own subjective test here. We will start with our guess, whichever of the two of you would like to go first. This is 1 through 10. Well, 0 to 10. We've never had a 0 for rewatchability, but you get the point.
I put it at a 10 because it's one of my absolute favorite movies.
How shocking. Utterly shocking.
When I just want a good laugh or a good comfort movie, I put it on. It's fast, it's funny, it's heartwarming, it's got a lot of good quotes. It's gonna always be in my top.
I have it as a 9. This is one that I constantly went back to when I was in graduate school because, I don't know, it served kind of as motivation for me a little bit. I very much understood the world and the problems with it. Made me okay with the fact that, or helped me be okay with the fact that it was okay to be a woman in a man's world.
Okay. I have this at an 8. I think objectively, from a general audience standpoint, it's shorter, it's snappier, it is comedic, it is a fairly good lead performance that is charismatic. You overlook a lot of the inequities of the random things that go on that are unexplained, like the Enrique character, what was his motivations for anything that he did during this movie, or why was all of a sudden David Kidney involved with helping her with the legal research necessary so that she could represent Brooke Wyndham there at the end, even though he was not one of the people that was part of Callahan's law firm, and he just seemingly shows up. We just have these random drop-ins of characters, and it doesn't seemingly understand why, because you forgive it, because Reese Witherspoon is so endearing in the middle of the film. And because of that, it's not a long movie, it's not complicated, you can be grossly entertained, you get the message of the movie very simply. I have this as an objective 8.
I'll watch it again. If somebody wants to watch it, I'll sit and watch it. Am I going to, on my own, initiate watching this film? Probably not. So I'm at a 6.5.
I think there's answers to some of your things and potentially some of the deleted scenes, Tom. And the fact that social stuff, as far as like David and whatever, you saw that throughout the film. Them building that kind of relationship, him helping her with things, her reaching out and helping him with stuff kind of makes sense to me.
There's not a lot of support there. And again, if your comment is that it's in the deleted scenes, that's either a problem with the script writing, that it was there but then not explained, or it's a problem with the editing, that they had to take things out that was part of the script but then didn't fit in the actual final version that they were going to do, and didn't somehow bring in or incorporate the other pieces. I don't know. There's just a lot of open-ended things. But regardless, that is an 8.38 average between the four of us. Moving to audience score, we now have to use the IMDb score since Google has withdrawn their ratings from their platform. And so we have a 6.5 IMDb user rating and a 72% for Rotten Tomato users, giving us a 6.85. So to repeat the categories, we had an 8.13 for Legacy, a 7.88 for Impact and Significance, a 7.5 for Novelty, a 6.88 for Classicness, an 8.38 for Rewatchability, a 6.85 for Audience Score, giving us a final total of 45.62, and currently placing it on our list between City Lights and Pillow Talk at number 153. Commentary from the peanut gallery there, Dad?
No, just watching the reaction of my two daughters, so...
This is about the midpoint of the list. So that being said, if you have any commentary for us, good, bad, or otherwise, or if you have any commentary on hunting wabbits, you can write us at greatestaltimemoviepodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on any of our socials at gmodepodcast, or you can write us on the website ronnieduncanstudios.com/gmodepodcast. Let's move to remaining questions on this one. I've already highlighted a few things that we have in store, let's say, but I have a few more remaining here. If Warner is such a doofus, why was he picked for the internship?
Everybody in his family had been a senator.
So, supposedly
How many doofuses are in Congress and in the Senate right now? There are doofuses.
Okay, but this is supposedly like a coveted internship at a major law firm. It's supposedly on merit. There aren't number of other people to pick from.
How many politicians who get voted out of office end up as senior attorneys at major law firms in New York, Washington, Chicago, etc., because they're there for their name? That's it. Don't give me this idea that there's a merit system to this.
Okay, fair enough. Question 2, why was Chutney back on the stand at the end? So we have her giving testimony for the prosecution early on. We have cross-examination. She is not a rebuttal witness. Why the fuck is she back on the stand? It makes no sense.
The best I could come up with is somehow she was a rebuttal witness.
To what?
Or you can, it's very seldom done, you can say that I reserve my right to recall this witness.
Okay. I know the girls aren't going to have much on the legal questions here, but another one that I highlighted earlier, but why doesn't Brooke just hire Emmett? He's the one fighting for Elle, and he could have just had her sit in. That way he is the one in control, but she's still on the case. He clearly agreed that Callahan was a douchebag, so he's the senior attorney. He's got more experience, but she can help not prosecute, but defend the case. That makes more sense to me, but I know that in the end, you needed Elle to be able to be in the courtroom and the lead and have the Perry Mason moment to give this movie that satisfying Hollywood ending. So I've answered my own question, but still. Finally, how did Elle's dad get in a martini into the graduation?
He's the kind of guy that I think carries around a briefcase that has a full martini making kit in it. So he can just make one up whenever he wants.
Like there were 2 rows for the parents at the back of this tiny graduation, which is normally in a much larger auditorium, and he's got a martini for some random reason. Like, what the fuck?
Well, most graduations are only enjoyable if you are drinking a martini.
That's fair. I didn't go to my college graduation. I have no intention to go to my law school graduation.
A lot of schools make it mandatory now. Marquette makes it mandatory. I refuse to go to mine because it was set the same day as your mother graduating from college. So I went to her graduation.
Okay, if they make me go out to Cleveland, I guess I can because I don't have to do anything while there except show up. But yeah.
You all get to sit for the misery of my graduation because I decided not to walk on the last one, so I'm going to on this one.
I see.
Because I want, yeah.
The only time I'm going to walk is going to be when I get my PhD, and that's because I want one of those fun hats.
I don't want the hat. I just want my professor who hates me to put the hood over
that
my...
kind of hat because you get...
I know, Sarah.
You wear a regular one. But
okay.
I want one
for
of the tri-cornered,
I know what you're talking about,
PhD
Sarah.
hats.
I just want my professor who hates me to place the hood over me and be like, all right, I did this.
Anyone else have any remaining questions?
Yeah, I actually have one, and it's one of the only things that I will put a small asterisk on this movie. It never occurred to me as a child, but if Warner is such a dork, and he is not even... I'll give him the he was waitlisted into school, but he takes himself so seriously and thinks so well of himself. Why the hell is she so in love with him that she'd follow him across the country and do all of this?
People have done stupider things for less qualified people than that. You know of people I could give personal satisfaction or personal situations of that have followed people around to their own detriment because they didn't know any better. Like, that one's an easy one for me. But otherwise, hearing no other questions, I want to thank both of our guests for being back with us for their 12th and 7th different appearances. It looks like, Sarah, you'll be back with us in a couple of weeks to discuss a different movie that was I don't know if I would say major part, not especially not in the same way as this movie, but at least a significant moment in your childhood, Princess Diaries. And Allyson, you're not scheduled to be back with us this season, but just remind everybody what you're working on and where they can find you.
I'm here and there. I am finishing up my master's thesis, and that's about all for me. I spend my time at home enjoying my life.
I'm still working on my paper. I'm hoping to publish soon and looking at a couple different history journals to submit to. When I get around to that, I'm sure I'll be back to actually announce which one that will be in. Besides that, I am looking at potentially trying to online publish a short story, so I will potentially talk about that next time I'm on. And if you're looking for me, I'm at the Nomadic Archaeologist on Instagram.
And Dad will forgo final thoughts for the week, given that we are pre-recording this, so that looks like a good opportunity to end for the week. Thank you for listening. I do wish we could chat longer, but I'm having an old friend for dinner. Next week, for our 321st episode, we discuss Spirited Away from 2001, celebrating its 25th anniversary. Written and directed by Hayao Miyazaki, cinematography by Atsushi Okuyi, music by Joe Hisashi, edited by Takashi Sayama, starring Rumi Hiraki, Mia Irino, and Mari Natsuki. You won't want to miss that one, so watch ahead of the show by searching The Real Good app to find where it's streaming for you. That's REELGOOD. Please like, follow, rate, and review, or whatever on whichever platform you have so that more can join in on our fun. You can also email the show at RonnieDuncanStudios.com or at greatestalltimemoviepodcast@gmail.com, or find us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Letterboxd, Blue Sky, TikTok, at the handle @GMODPodcast. The Greatest Movie of All Time is a production of Ryan Duncan Studios. Our show is mixed, edited, and written by Thomas Duncan. Our music is thanks to Purple Planet Music. Our distributor is Captivate FM. Our technical provider is Riverside FM.